Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What a pleasure to welcome you to tonight's performance. Tonight is a celebration in so many ways for us. GRCC is celebrating centennial anniversary. This orchestra was founded in 1975, 40 years ago. We're celebrating big time, big style. We are so excited about this collaboration, about this performance that brings together Grand Rapids Community College Concert Choir under direction of my esteemed colleague, Dr. Stephen Barton, and set of fantastic soloists, illustrious soloists, Antonina Tchaikovskaya, Bryson Beer, Catherine Yanakos, and Bill Backout, have established their professional career, and whatever they do in future will shine such a positive light on GRCC Music Department and GRCC as a whole. I was so excited this morning. I got up at 3 a.m., much to my lovely wife's dismay, and started reviewing my music and materials that I use to study and gain deeper perspective, because this music just demands the most out of everybody on the stage. And there was one remark that was made by Bonnie Birma of the Blue Lake Public Radio when she interviewed me, and that is that this symphony is predominantly known for its last 10-15 minutes of music. And I felt, oh, how unjust. I mean, the last movement definitely changed so much that it changed the music history forever, bringing in all these forces unheard of, stepping out of all the boxes that one can imagine. But the other three movements are just as revolutionary, just as beautiful, just as intense. And I thought that we would give you a little sampler and sort of walk you through that wealth of musical material that's being presented in the first three movements. Well, let me just begin with the tune that everybody, I guess, came to hear. So this is the famous Ode to Joy, and this is how Shelley opened that fourth movement up. This just builds up throughout that fourth movement, and other sections come in. Violas, second violins, first violins, woodwinds, and it just escalates. He brings in more forces, and the whole group is overcome by this beautiful melody, including the chorus, and then, soloist, and then chorus. But let's go back to the first movement and listen to the main subject that start the piece. The very first one begins out of nowhere. There's this murmuring in second violins and cello, and a pedal point in horns, and here comes this broken up something, a melody, motif, and it just trickles down from violins and then violas all the way to basses. And he keeps repeating that. and it hurries through until the rest of the ensemble joins in, and for the first time, we hear this majestic statement. Ta-da! 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 What's so unique about this that, this is a symphony in D minor. You would expect it to begin in the tonal center. No, not Beethoven. He starts on A, and further, to make it even more vague, he doesn't give us the third of the chord. So is it A minor or A major? We don't know. We don't know until the whole orchestra comes in, and we know it's minor, but it's still not D minor. He has to restate it again, and during that process he modulates when he, for the first time, makes that segment, and sort of opens up that movement in the D minor. The second subject is quite distinct, contrasting from the first one, in every respect, every regard. It's predominantly stepwise motion, it's legato, it's such a smooth and expansive melody, and it unfolds in the woodwinds. So let's listen to the second subject. Is that restlessness underneath, provided by the arpeggios in lower strings and violins. That and then we move into codetta of this section, which sounds something like this. And then he moves on and develops these ideas in the development section. And we know that there were two compositional techniques that not only he mastered so well, but was much more interested toward the end of his life. One was counterpoint, and the other one was variation technique. So those two will be well represented. Now we're going to listen to a section where he actually introduces those two themes in double counterpoint. So I'll have Shelley play the one theme first, then we'll have the second violin join them, and then the rest of the ensemble, and you'll be able to hear the first subject, second subject, and then the third subject, all put together. So this goes on after a considerable amount of time. When he exhausts all the material, he's preparing recapitulation, bring back the material as we heard it the first time. And again, he's thinking along different lines. He brings it back, but before he does, he turns it around and presents it in a completely different style. We can hear the melody, we can hear the first subject, but it's not shy, broken, vague. It's right there in our face with maximum levels, fortissimo, and this time with a very strong resolution of D major. And before we think we've heard it all, here comes Beethoven and unveils what he was hiding from us all this time. And he shows us the vulnerable, the yearning, the tender person. And it's so delicate as he uses this centuries-old technique of descending chromatic motion, and then provides sort of a funeral march motif about that. It emerges out of nowhere and is there only for a short period of time, but it's such a tender moment that it's difficult not to recognize the suffering he was going through. and he drives it all the way to the end with a very strong, confirming, affirming conclusion. So that's the first movement. Second movement, which is yet another surprise, something he has not done in any of these 8 symphonies. He moves the scherzo, or the fast movement, to the position of the second movement, and then he introduces this 3-note motif that is the basis of the whole movement. And this was dubbed as the most glorious way to use repetition without monotony. And truly, he's a master of that. The sense of variation that he introduces into orchestral writing drives the whole movement through, and it's a long one. It's the longest scherzo in his output. There is an anecdote about how this is actually the first movement that we find written down for the new Grand Ninth Symphony. It was this movement, and underneath he wrote fugue. And he does treat this subject in a fugal style throughout the whole movement. And in an inscription for one of the copies that he rented to London, he wrote his favorite proverb, "The early bird gets the worm." Because apparently he came to this idea one early morning on a great day, as he's, getting up and starting to work. And so we were so proud of this team. So we're going to play a little excerpt from the opening, and then we're going to also introduce you to the trio section that again is beautifully contrasting. So that second excerpt was the trio, which is presented in Woodwind section. The first one, you can see how strictly he treats the theme. It's first introduced in second violins, then it's passed on to viols, fifth below, in strict counterpoint, then 4 measures later, first violins, 4 measures later, without. No, it was cello first, then first violins, and then basses. So, and this, again, lasts for a considerable amount of time, and he manages to keep it alive in the song. The next movement, Adagio, is original in formal design, complete. But we could sort of say or speculate that it falls into 2 distinct sections. And it's just marked by these beautiful, tender, standing melodies. The first of which is presented in first violin. And then the second theme is ushered in by middle voices, violas and second violins, and it moves forward. It's the andante section. So we can bring in the first melody again. And then what unfolds is a series of beautiful variations that will take place mostly in the first violin section. And the standard quality carries the movement all the way to the end, until this beautiful dream, this piece, is disrupted by this harsh fanfare. Harsh fanfare that brings in a minor second without any preparation, without any excuses, right in the first word, and it sounds something like this. Yes. What can follow? Cello try to make nice, and they bring this beautiful, dignifying recitative. This recitative was something that, again, has not been done with the whole section. Well, one person, that's calm, but the whole section, just what do you mean? Reportedly, the first performance did not really go that well. They only had 2 rehearsals, and cello and bassist did not know what to do with this stuff. In one of the notebooks of Mr. Schiller, who was a close friend and confidant of late Beethoven, he's asking Beethoven, what do you mean? Does it supposed to sound like there are words with it? And that was exactly Beethoven's intention. So it's a wordless recitative, nevertheless very, very expressive. And they bring it back several times after this harsh interruption. Interrupted again. And then he brings in somebody who will sing, "Oh, Freude, not diese Töne. Please, not these noises. Let's just sing something that's positive and happy. How about, let's sing something like Ode to Joy by good old Schiller." And this new, before actually, finds the music, tries all the pieces, all the themes that were sounded in the first, second, and third movement to see if that pairs well with the text. And so one after one, he brings in the opening, and then immediately turns it off. So no, that's not going to work. So another recitative, then he brings in another theme, of course, from the scherzo. Scraps it, now that's not going to work. Another recitative brings in the solo movement. Now, that's not going to work. And so, at the very end, it seems like he's lost, and then suddenly this idea pops in. And it's introduced to us by cello and basses. And it's so simple, so tender, and uncomplicated, as if I'm not sure if this could actually work. And then little by little, he develops it into this fantastic theme that everybody recognizes. And so voila, we have conquered, we have come full circle. And to demonstrate it, he's using the gesture of tonality when he changes from a minor and somber mode into a major mode, a typical Beethoven in that respect. And great work is born. So I hope you enjoy listening to it as we, no interruption, embark on this fantastic work. Thank you for coming.